All right, we are going to start this lesson with a little video. I'm sorry if you hate country music, but I promise the video is purposeful, so please watch it until the end. Alrighty, so what in the world is the purpose of me showing you a country video at the beginning of class? Well, our topic today is observational or social learning, which is learning by watching other people. And if we pay attention to the core theme or idea in that video, it is all about how that little boy watches his dad and he tries to imitate him and be like him, whether that is the good stuff that the dad does or the bad stuff that the dad does. We are going to progress through this unit, but that's something that I would like for you to consider, right? It doesn't have to be a younger person. It could be any person. People do pay attention to the behaviors that you're making, probably not as much as you think, but they are paying attention. So consider that, especially when someone is younger or is likely to be motivated or impressed by your actions, and ask, are you choosing behaviors that you would want somebody else to repeat as you go through your life? All right, so let's actually get into the content of what we're looking at here. If you've already looked at your terms, you probably already saw Bandura's social learning theory. So with this, it's really important to note, right? Social learning theory kind of blends some of the other things that we have looked at, because we learn by watching other people, by imitating people. However, we also learn by watching the operant conditioning of other people, right? I don't have to touch a hot stove myself to know I don't want to do that, right? If I've ever seen someone do it and pull their hand away and looked at the blisters on their hands, I think, yeah, nah, I'm not going to do that, okay? Or if I watch someone in my class get rewarded for completing really, really detailed terms, I didn't do it, but I saw that they did it and they got a reward. So next time I'm going to do it. All right. So again, it is about watching and observing for the purposes of imitation, but we also watch and observe other people get rewards or use operant conditioning, and therefore we do that too. So that's an important thing to note. For your warm-up discussion post in class today, I asked you guys to tell me something that you're really good at and how you learned to be good at that thing. Some of you might have indicated something that was related to operant conditioning, but I feel like a lot of you probably indicated something that was more cognitive or observationally based, right? So you watched somebody do it, somebody showed you, and then you tried to do it yourself. Okay, so it was through that social interaction and observation and communication with another person that in part probably helped you develop that skill. Maybe not for all of you, but I would beg to guess for a decent portion of you that was the case. Now, in order for observational learning to take place, we do have to have a series of different components actually exist, right, within that. So the very first thing is you have to actually pay attention to what's going on. If you aren't paying attention at all, if you're not giving any attention to something, it's going to be really, really hard to figure out how to do it, right? So say you're in math class and you're playing on your phone the whole time, which I hope you are not playing on your phone the whole time, but I don't know, for whatever reason, your math teacher is not enforcing the cell phone policy and you're playing on your phone. You're probably not going to be able to learn the skill that your math teacher is teaching you because you aren't paying attention. If you aren't paying attention, even if something is happening within your environment, if you aren't directly, purposefully observing it, then it might be difficult for you to actually perform the behavior at a later point. Let's say you are paying attention, right? We'll say it's Mr. Snyder. You're paying attention in AP Calc or Honors Calc or Calculus class, and you pay attention. Mr. Snyder shows you how to do the problem. He does a couple of practice problems with you, right? However, right, even after you observe him, if you can't remember those steps when you get home, right? You get home later that night and you've got some practice problems and you can't do them, right? You don't know. That's an issue. If you can do them, that's awesome, right? You practice the problems, you rehearse the problems, you do the things that you watched him do in class, right? And then you do them yourself. The process of actually doing them is going to help you retain that information. Okay, maybe you have to go back and you have to pay attention, right? You got to go back to step one again before you can rehearse them and encode them yourself. But again, the hope is you pay attention in step one, and step two, you practice whatever it is, or you try out, or you imitate whatever that skill or that thing is yourself. That encodes it to memory. Obviously, some behaviors are going to encode much quicker than other behaviors, or some bits of information are going to encode quicker than others, and that rehearsal stage might be a little bit less, okay? Then you get to the reproduction stage, right? The stage in which you have to do it solely, freely, and independently, right? So you're using what you paid attention to, what you actually encoded into your memory, and then you are doing it, okay? When you do it, you might not do it appropriately. So during this reproduction phase, you're going to get some feedback, right? You're going to get some feedback, some clarification, right? You're going to continue to do it. Eventually, the goal is that you will establish the routine, the goal, whether it's doing the math problem, whether it is shooting a basket from a certain distance using a certain technique, right? Whether it's swinging a bat to hit the ball in a particular part of the field. I'm not an athlete, friends, so I'm just trying really hard here. Whether it's playing a certain piece of music using, right, the right volume and intonation and all of these things when you're singing, all of this stuff, right? And when you do that, yes, right, the people around you recognize, and you might be tangibly rewarded, or you might just be rewarded with the knowledge that you have performed the behavior, right? If after a while you don't get it, that motivation piece is going to go away and you're not going to try anymore and it's going to go away. Okay. So it's really important to note that, like, even if these things happen very, very quickly, observational learning requires you to pay attention. It then requires you to retain the information that you paid attention to be able to reproduce it and alter it as necessary, and then to be rewarded, right, in the knowledge of performing that particular behavior. Okay. All right, let's look a little bit more. Let's look in a little bit here into this biology component of this. They've actually done some research and looked at the brain itself and what happens when people are watching another person performing an act, and then if they are performing that act on their own. This diagram that you're looking at here on the bottom shows a person that is in pain. On the right shows a person that is watching somebody in pain. So what we see is there are some portions right there in the back of the frontal lobe and the top of the temporal lobe that are highlighted in this picture. This is a functional MRI. It shows the actual structures of the brain as well as areas of activity, and we see similar areas of activity. You have something called a mirror neuron in your brain. And again, a mirror neuron is something that lights up or is active in the same way it would be if you were performing a task by simply watching that task, okay? So that is something that's pretty cool in your frontal lobe, is that when you watch someone perform a task, the parts of your brain that would be active when you do the task are actually active, and that might help you in that process of remembering and imitating or having a feeling of empathy toward another person, right? So very, very important biologically in the modeling observational learning process.